I think some people think that. So what would you say to someone?
Well, let's continue reading some of these statistics because I think it does address that.
Okay.
Only 4% of homes with a married mother and father are on food stamps at any given time. 21% of cohabitating and 28% of single mothers are on food stamps. So these are socioeconomic decisions that you control. And the reason is that a house divided against itself can't stand.
So real quick, married women have more money, do better, right? That was the argument they made. This has also been an argument that Republicans have been making for a while. We talked about the elections earlier. And the argument is married women are more likely to vote Republican than single women. Why is that? Is it because, I don't know, Lacey, you're a woman. You get married, you're gonna vote how your Republican husband votes. That's.
Oh, I guess I better stay single forever then. Oh man. Whew.
I don't know. Well, just saying.
I don't know if you know what? I feel like I might pass out from that one. I can't even think about that.
It's just shocking. So the assumption is that women don't have any autonomy. Like once I put a ring on your finger, and now you're gonna do what I tell you. Fuck that shit. That's not happening. That's never happened.
In the history of marriage, that has never happened.
Well,
Seriously.
I'm going to disagree. In the 50s and 60s, it did because you didn't have any money and you didn't have any real rights prior to the fucking civil rights movement. You didn't have.
Okay, all right, fine. I'll give you that, but I'm also going to add that the amount of volume that was being consumed as a direct result of that. Just going to put that out there and leave that alone. Let you come to your own conclusions there.
But there was a conservative movement where they would like it to go back to like the 40s, 50s, and 60s where women didn't have rights.
Okay, but let's also.
I'm like, that's fucked up. Go ahead, sorry.
Just addressing a different part of what that statement was, but he wanted to go through, and I'm not remembering the numbers, but point out that more single mothers were on food stamps. Well, no kidding. There's one income in the whole household. Yeah. This is not rocket science, right? Like whether it's a woman or not, if it's one parent household, the odds become higher, right? But then, okay, the other one that maybe seems less obvious, but let's address it. Cohabitating but unmarried, I'm calling them spouses, but partners living together, their families are more likely to be on food stamps. Well, let's stop and think before that, okay? So if you are unmarried and cohabitating and have a whole, a family with children, etc. Now, perhaps it's because morally you're not interested in marriage or don't believe in that. I'm sure there are some people to which that apply, but
small percentage.
Let's just stop and look. If you come from a background with a lack of resources and a lack of money, that can be a barrier for marriage. Now, I know people are probably going to, point out to me, Elacius, you can just go down to the courthouse and do that. But most people, when they're getting married or plan to get married, actually do want a wedding.
Right.
Like they're thinking they want to plan a wedding. And so many of these people may actually be intending on getting married, but they don't have the funds to be able to do that. So getting married, literally having a wedding, is already an item of privilege. So if you are able to do that and have the resources to do that, this assumes you're already in a certain spot.
Well, and most people that get married already have stuff. Most people were less likely to want to marry somebody who's not in a good financial position, right? There's no romance without finance. That's just, it's a horrible thing to say, but it is sort of true, right?
So when you say that, explain what you mean.
Well, I mean, you can meet somebody and fall in love, but if you can't feed yourself, necessity has to take precedence over desire. Right. So, for example, let's say you're lower income and you're dependent on welfare, right? Or you're dependent on WIC, right? Women and children benefits or you're dependent on Medicaid. Well, if you get married, your combined income might kick you out of those programs. So you'd be stupid
Right.
to get married because you can't take care of
So
yourself or your kids at that point.
so in that situation, and I have known people, lots of people who have, this is applied to, in order to make that economic choice, your combined incomes would have to pop you up high enough to not need those types of resources anymore, because you can't get yourself in a situation where you're kicked off of them, but your combined income hasn't popped you up enough to be able to afford those things without it. So that's a very good point, that those things become sort of behind the scenes disqualifiers as well.
No, absolutely. But that's my point is it's, you also have to factor in the younger people are less interested in getting married than previous generations. And part of that is because they've grown up through massive war and recession. They're not as keen to like get married and have kids and jump into that shit. Because that's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of stuff to add on.
Well, then also looping back, I know this is overly simplifying to a certain degree, but if I ever choose to get married, it doesn't need to be the most expensive wedding in the world. But if I'm getting married, I'm actually having a wedding. People say, "Oh, you're poor. Just go down to a courthouse." Okay, you're poor. You don't deserve to have an actual wedding.
Right.
So I know it sounds maybe silly to want to blame the cost of having a wedding, but there's a certain element of that. People who want to get married actually want to have the get married experience, not the here's the court, here's a piece of paper experience necessarily.
Wow.
And to tell people that they should just do that, because I have heard Dave, kind of make comments about, it wasn't in relationship to poverty, but comments of, well, you don't need to wait and plan a big wedding. Just like go down and you do it on Tuesday, But if people do that, that's fine. I've known people who've done that too. But a lot of people, they actually want the wedding.
Yeah, well, but it goes.
So they might be hanging out waiting to be able to even do that.
Well, but it goes back to Worthington's law. If you don't have the money, you're not good enough for a wedding. So you don't get to enjoy having that life experience. You might want it, but you're not good enough for it.
So you might as well just go down and get the piece of paper, I guess.
Right. And vote Republican.